Africa and he's never seen this tribal dance. So when you see that, you realize our culture is not a learned behavior. It's literally in our DNA. So as much as they tried to cut us off from it, to beat it out of us, or to miseducate us, they couldn't take it away from us because it literally is us. So that's what I tried to capture when I designed the Yasimba DNA collection. I wanted to show people that our modern urban style and our ancestral roots are really the same thing. I wanted to show people that the creativity and originality that we have in our urban style now is nothing but an extension of our ancestral roots because it is in us. I wanted to show people that greatness is literally in our DNA. The Yasimba DNA collection is now available at yasimba.com. Yasimba, for those who remember what we've never forgotten.
I've been vaping, but it's safer than smoking.
You know, one Juul pod contains as much nicotine as 20 cigarettes. 26.
Huh.
God, seems like 1,000 years ago. I fought my way out of that cave, became Iron Man. Realized I loved you. I know I said no more surprises, but I was really hoping to pull off one last one.
The world has changed. None of us can go back. All we can do is our best. And sometimes the best that we can do is to start over.
I saw all these people die. I keep telling everybody they should move on. Some do. But not us.
Even if there's a small chance, we owe this to everyone who's not in this room to try.
We will. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. I like this one.
So you go to Africa and you see a guy doing a traditional tribal dance. And in the middle of the dance, the brother starts to sea walk. Now, he's never been to America and he's never seen anybody do the sea walk. And the brother from Compton sea walking has never been to Africa and he's never seen this tribal dance. So when you see that, you realize our culture is not a learned behavior. It's literally in our DNA. So as much as they tried to cut us off from it, to beat it out of us, or to miseducate us, they couldn't take it away from us because it literally is us. So that's what I tried to capture when I designed the Yasimba DNA collection. I wanted to show people that our modern urban style and our ancestral roots are real.
You know, sometimes America's hypocrisy even surprises me. I read an article today that I just could not believe. And in the context of American history as a whole, it just absolutely baffled me that anybody could be in support of not just Donald Trump. See, I think we get a little caught up in the name Donald Trump and the person Donald Trump, and we don't really look at the movement, what I would like to call the Donald Trump movement, because as I've always said, one crazy person doesn't scare me. I can deal with one crazy person. Just get rid of them. Bye, goodbye. One crazy person does not scare me. It's when you have one crazy person and a bunch of sycophants and a bunch of followers who will follow him that really concerns me. I want to say right from the rip, phone lines are open. You can call in 706-452-ROXX. That's 706-452-ROXX. Or you can Skype into the show at the Chamber Radio Show. So just look for the Chamber Radio Show and you will find us. We would love to hear from you guys, and you always get on live on air. There's no call screener. So if you've got the hard questions to ask me, if hard disagreements, whatever the case may be, you get right on air with me. There's nobody that's going to screen you off the air. So the phone lines are open. We are going to talk about Donald Trump's new hypocrisy when we come back. But right now, we're going to go to the greatest theme song in radio history.
So let me get this straight. I've been on air for an entire year now, speaking every and anything that comes to my twisted mind. And you haven't taken me off air yet. What is wrong with you people? Yo, welcome to the chamber. Recline, give me your free time. Let's analyze this nation with a refined mind. Let's keep trying to end the wars and throw the peace sign. Unify the pastor, rabbi, and imams and seek the divine. I do this for the Trayvons, the Michael Browns, the Eric G's, Ivories, the Ebonies. I seek the truth, they telling me lies. But you are tuned into the light, so let me open your eyes. Every weeknight on the mic, trying to speak right and exact information. Slash through the miseducation. You are tuned into the right station.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Chamber. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. And of course, you are tuned in to either KYBN Radio, the World Advantage Network, Real People Talk Radio, WNIA, or Hip Hop News Source Radio, that's HHNSradio.com. I want to thank everybody out there for tuning in today. I don't know if you guys heard about this over the weekend. I know, first of all, let me say to everyone, happy Memorial Day. I hope that everybody enjoyed their Memorial Day as much as I did. Went out to some barbecues, had some fun, hung out with some family and friends. But I also hope that everybody took an opportunity to look at the news, because the hypocrisy is right in front of your face. But here's the problem. Where a lot of people don't identify the hypocrisy is that we live in this, what I call microwave generation. This 30 seconds or less generation. And I don't know, we have the memory of goldfish. Like 30 seconds, and then whatever happened in the last 30 seconds, we forget all about it. And if we start to put some pieces together, you can really put together the character of a person. So, I don't know if you guys heard this over the weekend, but Donald Trump was seriously considering pardons for some U.S. service members and some private military contractors, mercenaries basically, who were accused and convicted of war crimes. This is during the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, things like that. Let me be clear on who these people are. These are the people that will go into a village and start torturing women and children, trying to get information that these people may or may not have. These are the people that will stab prisoners who are surrendering. These are the people who will just commit all kinds of acts of atrocity. And they think, and a lot of times they are, covered as warriors, as soldiers. Chief Edward Gallagher was one of the guys Trump was considering giving a pardon to. He's a Navy SEAL who was accused of shooting an unarmed civilian. I want to be clear on this. Unarmed civilian. And stabbing an enemy prisoner to death. Nicholas Slayton, a former Blackwater security contractor. He's not even in the military. He was found guilty of first-degree murder for his role in the shooting incident that left a 14-year-old Iraqi civilian, a child, dead. And it left 18 injured. Major Matthew Goldstein. He was accused and convicted of killing an unarmed Afghani man who had been linked, or they thought he was linked to the Taliban. The man was unarmed and surrendering. These are the people, the dishonorable people, that Donald Trump was considering pardoning. Now, I've actually I have a few friends who are Trump supporters. I know that sounds strange, right? But I actually have a few friends who are Trump supporters. And these are the types of people who will defend Donald Trump at all costs. And anything he does, they're going to defend. So the way that they're defending him, and this was kind of unanimous. I spoke to all of them separately. And their unanimous defense for him, which, I mean, is going to be the Trump supporters' unanimous defense, is these men were acting in a time of war, and we were operating in a time of desperation. We needed that information, and it was basically the ends justify the means, because they were in a desperate time, in a desperate situation. They believe that their crimes against humanity, I mean, I'm talking about murdering children, were justified by the greater good of, possibly stopping terrorists and all of these good things that they used to scare us all throughout the Bush administration. I want to put this side by side with another desperate life or death situation when we come back from our break. But right now, we're going to go to our break. If you're tuned in on Facebook Live, we're going to go to a word from our sponsors, or YouTube or anything like that. If you're tuned in on KYBN, WNIA, or HHNS Radio, we're going to go to Earth, Wind, and Fire September. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back here in just a moment. So please stay tuned.
If I'm far from home, oh brother, I will hear you call. If the sky comes falling down for you, there's nothing in this world I wouldn't do.
So you go to Africa and you see a guy doing a traditional tribal dance. And in the middle of the dance, the brother starts to sea walk. Now, he's never been to America, and he's never seen anybody do the sea walk. And the brother from Compton, sea walking, has never been to Africa, and he's never seen this tribal dance. So when you see that, you realize our culture is not a learned behavior. It's literally in our DNA. So as much as they've tried to cut us off from it, to beat it out of us, or to miseducate us, they couldn't take it away from us because it literally is us. So that's what I tried to capture when I designed the Yasimba DNA collection. I wanted to show people that our modern urban style and our ancestral roots are really the same thing. I wanted to show people that the creativity and originality that we have in our urban style now is nothing but an extension of our ancestral roots because it is in us. I wanted to show people that greatness is literally in our DNA. The Yasimba DNA collection is now available at yasimba.com. Yasimba, for those who remember what we've never forgotten.
I've been vaping, but it's safer than smoking.
You know, one Juul pod contains as much nicotine as 20 cigarettes. 26.
Huh.
God, seems like 1,000 years ago. I fought my way out of that cave, became Iron Man. Realized I loved you. I know I said no more surprises, but I was really hoping to pull off one last one.
The world has changed. None of us can go back.
Yes, y'all, that is Earth, Wind, and Fire, September. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Chamber. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. And of course, you are tuned in to either KYBN Radio, the World Advantage Network, Real People Talk Radio, WNIA, or Hip Hop News Source Radio, that's HHNSradio.com. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Once again, the call-in lines are open, ladies and gentlemen. 706-452-ROXX. That's 706-452-7699. We appreciate hearing from you guys. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, look. Donald Trump is, well, actually, you know what? We haven't heard his side of the story, so I want to be fair to him. I know I try to be fair to people even when they don't deserve it. But I want to be fair to him. Donald Trump, we haven't heard his side of the story, but his supporters are very much justifying his attempted pardons of these war criminals. And they're justifying it by saying that, you know, these guys were at war and that the ends justify the means. And, you know, you never know where you're going to be at when somebody is shooting at you and this and that and the other. I've spoken to quite a few Trump supporters over the last few hours. And this is the same line, the same rhetoric that I'm getting. Okay. Let's take this back to another situation. Now, I don't think that anybody with any type of sense would think that the United States of America during the 1970s was, how do I want to put this, equal. I don't think that anybody with any sense would think that the United States of America during the 1970s was fair to African Americans. And I think that anybody would realize that, yes, we had a police problem in the we still have a police problem, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But we had a police problem in the 1970s. We had a problem with the criminalization of African Americans in the 1970s. Even organizations who were designed to stop police brutality against African Americans, they were literally targeted by the FBI, the CIA, and other organizations. I mean, there's tons of documentation on this, including the Black Panther Party. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, Donald Trump gave a speech in 2016, and he directed this speech at Cuba. And one of the lines in the speech that rang out so aggressively to me, it hurt me, is the demand of Cuba to return to the United States Assata Shakur. He used her real name, which I will not, or he used her birth name, which I will not dignify by even saying, because that is not the woman's name. But he demanded that Assata Shakur be brought back to the United States to face United States justice. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with the story of Assata Shakur, Assata Shakur was a Black Panther. She was arrested aggressively by the police. During the time that she was arrested by the police, there was a gun fight. Many of her friends had been killed. Upon her arrest, they accused her of killing a police officer, which she did not do. They beat her. They tortured her. By some accounts, they raped her. She was railroaded through the court system. She was beaten. She was laid next to a dead woman. She was psychologically and physically tortured. They claimed that she robbed places that did not exist. They charged her with crimes that could not have been her. The physical evidence does not support it. But during this time, she did make an escape and went to Cuba. It was later found out that the raid on her, on their facility was unwarranted. They came in to kill the Black Panthers. Assata Shakur, by all means, was in a position where she had no choice but to shoot her way out. And she finally did, and made it down to Cuba, where she received political asylum from Fidel Castro and is now receiving political asylum from Raul Castro. Now, let's look at these two things. Donald Trump is willing to forgive criminals who committed their crimes out of aggression. Now, these men and women are trained officers of the United States officers or enlisted men of the United States of America. They volunteered to go to war because we have an all-volunteer military at this point. We don't have a draft. So they volunteered to go to war. They knew the rules of the Geneva Convention. Yet they felt it was okay to kill people. And Donald Trump is willing to forgive that. But when it comes to Assata Shakur, he doesn't want justice. He wants vengeance. Let's be clear. He wants vengeance. And it's even more simple than vengeance. Assata Shakur has become an icon for many Black Americans. She showed that you could stand up to the system. And I'm not going to say get away with it, because that's nothing to get away from. She showed that she could stand up to injustice and win. She stood up to injustice. And many Black Americans support Assata Shakur. And Donald Trump is very aware of that. This is why, of all of the political refugees that are in Cuba right now, that was the only one that he called out. The reason for that was a very, I can't even call it a dog whistle at this point. It wasn't subtle. He wanted to look America in the eyes and look Black America in the eyes and say, sit down, shut up. You better not challenge us. He was saying there's a new sheriff in town and you niggers better fall in line. That's what he said when he came after Assata Shakur. Now I looked at the pictures of these war criminals, all three white men. Let's look at some of the other people that he pardoned. Joe Arpaio. Now, if you guys remember Joe Arpaio was the sheriff of Maricopa County. And he decided that his new policy with all of his deputies was going to be, if you saw somebody that looked Hispanic, basically stop and harass them. Find out, everything, whether they're committing a crime or anything like that. You have the right to accost somebody who looks Hispanic because they might be illegal. Joe Arpaio was brought before a federal judge. And the federal judge said, listen, you can't do that. That is racial profiling. Joe Arpaio told that judge, I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care what your order is. He was held in contempt. Donald Trump pardoned him for the contempt charge. And he received a few other charges that Donald Trump pardoned him from. He let everybody know that if you target non-whites, I'm going to back you. The same thing that he's doing with these war criminals. He's telling those war criminals, hey, you guys are white and you targeted some non-white people. I'm going to back you because you went after those Arabs over there. This is not even a dog whistle anymore. Any third grader could see through this. This is saying loudly and clearly, we hold whites on a pedestal. And everybody that's non-white, you better fall in line and we can do whatever we choose to you. This is why the Aryan Nation and the Ku Klux Klan backed Donald Trump. Did you guys see over the weekend the the pathetic rally in Dayton, Ohio? Or I'm sorry, where was it? Daytona? Whatever. There was a rally, a Ku Klux Klan rally. Now it was supposed to be huge, but only like a dozen people showed up. But I saw a couple MAGA hats in the crowd. This is why they support him, because he sends very clear signals as to who he will back, who he will not back. And you can usually tell them by the color of their skin. Who he wants harsh punishment to be received on. Now, pardoning these war criminals, beyond the hypocrisy of it all, which I had to point out, I want you to think about the message that this sends to the rest of the world. These are men who have violated the Geneva Convention. What message does this send to the rest of the world? It says that America believes that its soldiers can go into any country and do as they please. They do not have to follow the agreed upon rules of engagement. And they believe that they are so powerful that if they choose not to, or if somebody within their organization, within their nation violates these rules, they'll simply just essentially spring them from jail. It's not what the pardon was for. Traditionally speaking, the pardon was used by the president. Now, of course, there have been exceptions. Bill Clinton pardoning his brother, stuff like that. Don't get it twisted. It's been abused before. But the pardon was traditionally used to balance out justice. if somebody had extenuating circumstances where they were fighting, or they were either sorry for their actions or there were some tremendous extenuating circumstances. That's what the pardon was designed for, to balance out justice. Instead, Donald Trump is using it to make political statements. And his political statements are detestable. A lot of you guys are about to get mad at me for what I'm about to say. But do you all really think that September 11th happened because a bunch of Arabs just went crazy for no reason? Like, they had zero reason to hate the United States of America, but they just woke up one day and said, we hate America, and we're gonna fly airplanes into their buildings, killing ourselves in the process. You know, for some reason, we don't look at people in other countries as human beings. And what I mean by that is, I mean, we know that they're human beings. Intellectually, we know that they're human beings. But I think sometimes we forget that they pretty much have the same thought processes as us. They want to provide for their families. They want to get up and go to work every day. Maybe watch a little TV, probably watch too much TV. Have a couple beers when they come home. You know, we forget that just because people are in other countries, we kind of forget that they're normal people. The same type of people that we see around us every day. So what would drive a normal person so insane that they would be willing to fly airplanes into buildings to kill themselves? Think about this. What would drive you so insane that you'd be willing to, let's say, walk into a building with a bomb strapped to your chest and blow yourself up, killing somebody that you perceive as your enemy in the process? It would take a lot. It would take a lot to piss you off to that point, wouldn't it? I mean, I know I got a couple crazy people that listen in on my show because I get your letters. But, I mean, think about it. For 99.9% of America, it would take a lot to piss you off to that point. It's the same with our Arab brothers overseas. It's the same with everybody in the world. It takes a lot to piss them off to that point. So why does nobody ever ask, why are they so pissed with us? I'll tell you why. Because to ask that question means that you might run into something that makes you a little bit responsible. America holds some responsibility in this so-called war on terror. You and I both know that usually when two people get into a fight or an argument, it's usually not one person's fault or the other. Generally speaking, both people have some culpability in that. The same holds true here. But we never get taught about our culpability. Well, what you just saw Donald Trump do is one of the reasons they're pissed with us. I mean, I want you to think about this for a minute. If you're a father or a mother out there, you get up, you go to work every day. You come home, you try and provide for your family. Normal father and mother. One day, some soldier from another country kicks the door into your house and kills your 14-year-old child, stabs them to death. You're probably at this point already pissed off enough to go blow some people up. Now let's add insult to injury. That person is held accountable. They're brought to trial. So you're feeling like you've got some sort of justice. At least it's not going to bring your 14-year-old daughter back, but you got some sort of justice now. And then the president of their country says, you know what? I think it was justified. I'm going to let them go. That would piss you off enough to maybe fly a plane into a building if you had the know-how. You might be pissed off with that country a little bit. Don't you think? Why don't we ever think about things in these terms? I guess I got to go to our musical break. Let's get down with some hip hop. Go to a little bit of Ice Cube. We'll be right back here on The Chamber, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned.
All we can do is our best. And sometimes the best that we can do is to start over.
I saw all these people die. I keep telling everybody they should move on. Some do, but not us.
Even if there's a small chance, we owe this to everyone who's not in this room to try.
Hey, brother, there's an endless road to rediscover. Hey, brother, know the water's sweet, but blood is thicker. Oh, the sky comes falling down for you. There's nothing in this world I wouldn't do. What if I'm far from home? Oh, brother, I will hear you call. If the sky comes falling down for you, there's nothing in this world I wouldn't do.
So you go to Africa and you see a guy doing a traditional tribal dance. And in the middle of the dance, the brother starts to sea walk. Now, he's never been to America and he's never seen anybody do the sea walk. And the brother from Compton sea walking has never been to Africa and he's never seen this tribal dance. So when you see that, you realize our culture is not a learned behavior. It's literally in our DNA. So as much as they tried to cut us off from it, to beat it out of us, or to miseducate us, they couldn't take it away from us because it literally is us. So that's what I tried to capture when I designed the Yasimba DNA collection. I wanted to show people that our modern urban style and our ancestral roots are really the same thing. I wanted to show people that the creativity and originality that we have in our urban style now is nothing but an extension of our ancestral roots because it is in us. I wanted to show people that greatness is literally in our DNA.
The Yasimba DNA collection is now available at yasimba.com. Yasimba, for those who remember what we've never forgotten.
I've been vaping, but it's safer than smoking.
You know, one Juul pod contains as much nicotine as 20 cigarettes. 26.
Huh.
God, seems like 1,000 years ago. I fought my way out of that cave, became Iron Man.
Yes, y'all. That was Ice Cube. Today was a good day. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the chamber. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. And of course, you are tuned in to either KYBN Radio, the World Advantage Network, Real People Talk Radio, WNIA, or Hip Hop News Source Radio. That's HHNSradio.com. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I'm going to get off of this topic. No, not quite yet. Not quite yet, because we also have to deal with the larger issues. And I'm not saying, I want to be clear here. I'm not saying that America doesn't have some righteous actions that it takes. What I'm saying is we have to look at the fight. And to really resolve an issue, both sides have to come to the table honestly. The reason that organizations like ISIS and Al-Qaeda exist is not because just a bunch of people just said, oh, hey, we're pissed off with America for no reason. No, come on, that's foolish. You got to look at what America has done in the Middle East. We've taken over oil fields. We've bulldozed holy lands and built military bases on them. We've come in there. Every time we come into the Middle East and we have a war, we have a shoot first, ask questions later policy. We blow up entire, I'll tell you what, the image that always sticks in my mind, you guys have seen the movie Fahrenheit 9/11. If you haven't, please go watch that movie. There's a scene in the movie where an Iraqi father is carrying his child, dead, body completely limp, and asking, what did he do? It was like a 5 or 6 year old kid. And he was asking, like, what did he do? Why did he need to die? And that's a good point. You know, if somebody came into your neighborhood and just started killing kids, you might be pissed off enough to join an organization like ISIS. You know, if you were just getting up and going to work every day and just trying to make a living for yourself, and then people just started bombing you and killing your friends and family and your children, might piss you off. I want you to think about this. For those of you that are devout in whatever religion you choose to worship under. What if somebody came and tore down your church and built a military base on it? You'd be pissed. America, we do this all the time. And for some reason, we've got what I can't remember the name of the author, but they call it the ugly American syndrome. We go to other nations and we act like we are the bosses and we should run everything. That is just horrendous. You know, about a year ago, I took a trip to China. For those of you that don't know, beyond this, I also own a small import-export business. And I went to China on business. And one of the days that I was there, I was doing some shopping. Just, you know, I had an extra day. And I'm in Shenzhen, China. And most Americans who go over there, you hire an interpreter. It costs you about $100 a day, and you hire an interpreter. That way, you know, even with me and my horrendous Mandarin, I can speak Mandarin a little bit, but I'm pretty horrendous with it. You can actually communicate with people. And I watched how some Americans were treating their interpreter. And I realized we do this all over the world. We do this politically. We do this on a one-on-one basis. We just have a very ugly attitude. I saw that people were treating their interpreters like pack mules and talking to them horribly. I even saw a guy yell at a store clerk in China because they wouldn't speak English. He got mad. Just speak English. We as Americans, we go over to other countries and we infringe. We try to run things. We try to impose our culture on them in their home. And we do so not just on small scales like that, but it gave me an idea of what was going on. Even on large scales. We go to other countries and we say, we're the bosses, we're running things. And in many cases, we end up killing people to try and usurp our own authority on others. It's ugly. And it pisses people off. It really does. So, yeah, I mean, we have to do better, America. But I want to move on here. And I know this is probably going to surprise a lot of you. But I actually want to give kudos to a governmental body. It's not completely signed, sealed, and delivered yet. But it seems like the laws governing policing in the state of California are going to change for the better. Hopefully they'll be enforced with the spirit that they are being written right now. So a little more than a year after the police gunned down and murdered Stephon Clark, a 22-year-old African-American father who was standing in his grandparents' backyard. California actually may be on the cusp of passing the nation's strictest laws governing when police are allowed to use deadly force. It's called the Stephon Clark Bill. Under this proposed legislation, and it's headed to the state assembly for a vote, cops in California would only be able to use lethal force when it was necessary and if there was absolutely no other option available. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, if a police officer is in a deadly situation and that officer can leave, if they have the ability to leave that situation, by law, they would be required to leave before they shot. Now, most laws in the United States of America governing police and their ability to use deadly force only state that the police officer can shoot to kill if a reasonable officer would have made the same decision. Now, this in itself is so ambiguous that many cops have gotten off from murder by claiming that, oh, well, I thought it was a wallet, or I thought it was a gun. A wallet was a gun, or a cell phone in Stephon Clark's case was a gun. or whatever the case may be. He looked like he was reaching for something. Tamir Rice. And the standard is so low. Well, many of you have seen the video on YouTube. There was an African-American motorist who was pulled over by the police. He stepped out of his vehicle. The officer said, "Show me your identification." He reached back in the vehicle to get his wallet that the officer requested. The officer begins to open fire. Fortunately for this African-American male, even though the officer was only about 6 feet away, he missed with every shot. And the guy he was shooting at was able to get away. Had no intention of running. They found him later. And, it wasn't like he had any warrants or anything in the car or anything. But, if somebody's shooting at you, you tend to run. Now, that officer was deemed to be reasonable. So now California is finally raising the standard. It's beautiful. The bill came as an outcry as a result of the outcry after Stephon Clark, his state-sanctioned murder. Let's call it what it is. He was shot 20 times. Most of those shots hit him in the back. The cops, whom the prosecutor's office chose not to indict, said they mistook Stephon Clark's cell phone for a gun. Now they can finally move a policy forward that will save lives. The bill was allowed to advance after a few changes to the language. But of course, there are many police organizations who are opposing this. Ron Hernandez, and I'm calling these guys out by name. He's the president of the Association of Los Angeles Deputy Sheriffs. Said that the bill is far from perfect. He does say that the bill will address fears. But they originally opposed the bill. I have to give credit where credit is due. California is making inroads into making it safer for citizens of their state to walk the streets. They even allowed Black Lives Matter Los Angeles to officially sponsor the bill. Is this going to stop every police officer? No. Let's be clear here. We still have many issues to deal with the police force. But what this will do is this will give our legal system inroad to hold police officers who shoot their guns indiscriminately accountable. The outcries when a young African American, or a young person for that matter of any race, gets shot will now have legal ground for justice. Now, we still have to do something about forcing the prosecutors to prosecute these people. Don't get it twisted. Don't for 1 second get so happy to think that the fight is over. But there will be a new law on the books, a new crime to prosecute them with. Now we have to start putting pressure on the prosecutors to actually move forward with the prosecution. It's time to go to our break here. Let's see. Let's go to Carl Carlton. She's a bad mamma jamma. If you're tuned in on our video stream, we're going to go to a word from our sponsors. Either way, we'll be right back here on The Chamber. Stay tuned.
Realized I loved you. I know I said no more surprises, but I was really hoping to pull off one last one.
The world has changed.
I was really hoping to pull off one last one.
None of us can go back. All we can do is our best. And sometimes the best that we can do is to start over.
I saw all these people die. I keep telling everybody they should move on. Some do, but not us.
Even if there's a small chance, we owe this to everyone who's not in this room to try.
Hey, brother, there's an endless road to rediscover. Hey, brother, know the water is sweet, but blood is thicker. Oh, the sky comes falling down for you. There's nothing in this world I wouldn't do. What if I'm far from home? Oh, brother, I will hear you call. If the sky comes falling down for you, there's nothing in this world I wouldn't do.
So you go to Africa and you see a guy doing a traditional tribal dance. And in the middle of the dance, the brother starts to sea walk. Now, he's never been to America and he's never seen anybody do the sea walk. And the brother from Compton sea walking has never been to Africa and he's never seen this tribal dance. So when you see that, you realize our culture is not a learned behavior. It's literally in our DNA. So as much as they've tried to cut us off from it, to beat it out of us, or to miseducate us, they couldn't take it away from us because it literally is us. So that's what I tried to capture when I designed the Yasimba DNA collection. I wanted to show people that our modern urban style and our ancestral roots are really the same thing. I wanted to show people that the creativity and originality that we have in our urban style now is nothing but an extension of our ancestral roots because it is in us. I wanted to show people that greatness, they couldn't take it away from us because it literally is us.
The Yasimba DNA collection is now available.
So that's what I tried to capture when I designed
Yasimba, for those who remember what we've never forgotten.
I've been vaping, but it's safer than smoking.
You know, one Juul pod contains as much nicotine as 20 cigarettes. 26.
Huh.
Yes, y'all. That's Carl Carlton. Oh, God, I can't talk today. That's Carl Carlton. She's a bad mamma jamma. Ladies and gentlemen, Welcome back to the chamber. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. And of course, you are tuned in to either KYBN Radio, the World Advantage Network, Real People Talk Radio, WNIA, or Hip Hop News Source Radio. That's HHNSradio.com. I want to say again, the phone lines are open. If you'd like to call in, if you got something to say, please feel free to give us a call. The new law in California, well, the proposed law in California, you know, it's going up to the state legislature right now. If it's voted into action, it will be a huge, huge step forward. Because it's the first time, I'm going to keep it real, it's the first time that states have instituted laws to hold their police officers accountable for their actions in a real way. So we can't call this a victory yet. Until it goes through, we cannot call it a victory. But if this goes through, you know, I know a lot of people are used to me standing here or sitting here and yelling and screaming about these police issues. But this is moving in the right direction. And I got to give credit where credit is due. You know, I have a problem a lot of times with lawmakers. I've said it on air a million times. The lawmakers are not trying to help us. So, first of all, I'm going to say to the California lawmakers, please, with this bill, prove me wrong. Sign this into law. I will be eternally grateful. I will certainly sing your praises here on air. Prove me wrong. When can we get other states to do the same thing? I mean, this was an outcry after a tragic death that made some headway. Do we need 50 murders in all 50 states before we start seeing laws like this instituted across the board? I would hope that California is setting a precedent, setting a new standard. I would hope that people in California would reach out to the rest of the states of this nation and say, you know what? This needs to happen. I'm proud of California for even considering this. You guys know I'm not a big fan of California, just as a place. It's not somewhere I like to be. But it might very quickly become a place that I think that many, especially in the African American community, who are 3 times more likely to be shot and killed by police than our white counterparts. I think it's a place that many of us will begin to flock to as a place, you know, I don't want to say sanctuary city because that kind of sounds really weird, but as a place that will start to be more progressive towards protecting the lives of their citizens. Unfortunately, it seems like every time that I see that we're making some progress, I also see steps backwards. And a city that I have lived in, a city that I have been affiliated with, is making a step backwards, and that is the city of Baltimore. And I don't know what it is about Twitter and Facebook and just internet posts in general. Excuse me, I apologize. I think that people start to feel like, oh wow, we're coming up on our our top of the hour break. You know what? We're going to go ahead and push that back. I think that people start to feel like because the internet provides a certain level of anonymity that they get more comfortable. You know, I grew up like I was the last generation where the internet wasn't really that big. You know, I grew up in the era where the internet started to get big, but we still dealt with face-to-face interactions. And face-to-face interactions are very different than interactions over the internet, because when you have to say something to somebody face-to-face, you're a little more cautious. You recognize that there is a certain element of people, there's a certain level that you can push somebody to before you end up getting punched in the face. I'm going to call it what it is. Over the internet, people have become a lot more bold. And I think that that's even going on with these professional organizations, like the Baltimore Fraternal Order of Police. They're under fire because they tweeted out what I perceive to be a threat, and a threat to the youth. And it was a little bit veiled, but anybody with any kind of sense can see what they were saying. This is Baltimore City Police, and they were talking about the patrolmen on Inner Harbor. They said, "To our officers at the harbor tonight, protect each other and don't fall into the trap that these are only kids. Some are criminals. Keep the current policies and consent decrees in mind. If ordered to arrest, put the names of the on-scene commander in reporting." I want to talk about that when we come back from our break. I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen, but we do have to go to our top of the hour musical break. Take you guys, if you're on our radio stream, I'll take you guys to a little bit of DMX. If you're on our video stream, we're going to go to a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back here on The Chamber, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned.
God, seems like 1,000 years ago. I fought my way out of that cave, became Iron Man. Realized I loved you. I know I said no more surprises, but I was really hoping to pull off one last one.
The world has changed. None of us can go back. All we can do is our best. And sometimes the best that we can do is to start over.
I saw all these people die. I keep telling everybody they should move on. Some do, but not us.
Even if there's a small chance, we owe this to everyone who's not in this room to try.
Hey, brother, there's an endless road to rediscover. Hey, brother, know the water's sweet, but blood is thicker. falling down for you. There's nothing in this world I wouldn't do. What if I'm far from home? Oh brother, I will hear you call. If the sky comes falling down for you, there's nothing in this world I wouldn't do.
See,
ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing a serious technical difficulty here in the studio. We are having some electrical issues. So for the remainder of the show, if you are tuned in on our live stream through our video, or I'm sorry, through our radio, I'm going to go ahead and take you guys to a rerun. If you're tuned in on our video, we're going to go ahead and cut the stream now. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. We will be back tomorrow. Oh, and I want to remind everybody really quickly that we will be broadcasting live starting tomorrow at 8 p.m. On our video stream. And of course, we will air the rebroadcast live on KYBN, WNIA, and Hip Hop News Source. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace and blessings.